The announcement that the developers made saying they intend to build an arena at the Fashion District came out in July, but still many people we talk to say they don't really know much about it. The developers have been having meetings in the community, but they have been by invitation only. They have been having meetings with people in Chinatown, but they are not asking our opinion of whether or not we want this arena. When you meet with them, they just say, this is what we're doing, here's my presentation. This is the first public, open meeting on the proposed arena in our community. The people of Chinatown have a right to information so they can make informed decisions and have a say about the proposed development that will impact their lives and their community. So in July, the 76th Place developers announced they made a decision to build a new basketball arena less than 1 block from Chinatown. They want to take over the Greyhound bus station and the parking garage, so the back of the arena will be right next to our first business, within 6 feet of the first business in Chinatown. The Sixers are planning to build an arena called 76th Place from Market to Cuthbert. Cuthbert is the small alley that runs next to the Greyhound bus station on the north side. The arena will seat 18,500 people. Demolition and construction will last for at least 6 years. They will be renting the space to host many events, such as concerts and sporting events. The current arena where they are right now, for example, has 36 events this month alone. There are many eating and drinking opportunities inside of all arenas. The restaurants range from chain fast food stands to very high-end restaurants. Fans go to the games or concerts and they eat and drink inside the arena. This is a map of the eating and drinking opportunities in the current arena. The current arena also has a lot of gambling opportunities inside through sports betting. This will bring gambling opportunities less than 1 block away from our community. More than 6,500 cars park at the current arena anytime there is an event. There's also a subway stop at that arena. The developers say that the area around Chinatown has 3,500 parking spaces. They say people will take the train, so there's no need for additional parking. Their plan is to give their fans an app like Parking Panda or Spot Finder in order for them to find available parking in the neighborhood.
他们现在有一个地铁站在他们的篮球场。球队的发展上说，唐人街附近有3500个停车位。
The developers say they have already decided that this arena will be good for the city and good for Chinatown. There are too many things we don't know yet. We don't know the impact this arena will have on the community. Usually projects of this size would have many independent studies done by professionals that the community agrees to. If the project is done by the federal government, these studies are legally required. They're called environmental impact studies, and they have strict criteria. A project of this size and impact on our whole city should have to conduct a full environmental impact study of the predicted impacts that the project will have on Chinatown. The developers say Chinatown will not be harmed, but we cannot know that without a thorough impact study. The construction and then the arena itself will have effects on the quality of air in Chinatown as well as noise levels. We also have to consider things like safety, sanitation, drunk sports fans pouring into our community at a time when Asians have been targets of violence. And also, the economic impact. In DC, residents told us they were forced to move out when they could no longer afford to pay their taxes or their rent. The developer announced that they now have a committee that they call the Chinatown Steering Committee. These are the groups and individuals that agreed to meet with the 76 Dev Corps and who say that they represent Chinatown to work with the developers around the development of the arena. There were several people from the community who were invited to be on the committee, but when they said they were opposed to the arena, they were no longer invited. Some of them are here tonight. Last week, we invited the developers to come help answer questions, and they have someone here tonight, David Gould, who will help to answer your questions tonight. We also want to acknowledge the politicians that have accepted our invitation to be here, though I lost the paper that has their names. Brendan Boyle has his chief of staff. Are you here?
Raise your hand.
Congressman Brendan Boyle, chief of staff, whose name I don't remember. I'm so sorry. And Susan, you have it. Thank you. Somebody's organized. Mary Louise Isaacson, who is the state representative for the 2nd Ward, has Suzanne Ward here. Are you here? Can you raise your hand? Cool. Okay. We also invited the councilperson for this district, Mark Squilla. Are you here? We also invited the steering committee members to answer our questions today, since the developers say that the steering committee represents Chinatown. We received an email from John Chin last night saying we did not give them enough notice, so no one from the steering committee is here unless someone came to answer questions. Anyone from the steering committee? So thank you again to everyone who came tonight. We're going to open this meeting now up for questions or statements. Mr. Gould, I'd like you to come forward. We ask that you keep your questions and remarks to 1 minute so that we can be sure that everyone gets a chance to ask their questions and get heard.
Mr. Gould, I think I met you a couple of times. One at the office, at Maple's office at Hip Sing, the first time I met you. And that you presented the same presentation that we have seen at the restaurant, and second time I met you at the restaurant. And all these meetings I've been to are closed door, invite only, not to the public. As I mentioned at that meeting to Mr. Adam, you know, we need a public hearing like this, you know, and that needs to be done. And time again, I've been gaslighted, you know. They thought it's a done deal, there's nothing we can do about it, and this is why a lot of people are silent. But as far as I know, you know, it is not a done deal. And the public needs to know what's going on.
Yeah, we have right to
And you know, in order for our democracy to work, you know, we need to, you know, be open about it and transparent. There's so much problem within our city. It's almost like Batman, the movie, if you watch that movie. So it's very similar, you know, and from the SEPTA issue, we asked for safety, we asked for, you know, transparency as well. Now we have a bunch of homeless people out on the streets who were once taxpayers. Right, they're taxpayers, they're voters. Now they're on the streets. And our city has done nothing about the homelessness as well. Yet we want to build a $1 billion arena in Chinatown. There's not enough traffic, enough congestion, right? And I also asked Mr. Adam, how many parking lots are we going to build? He said no more. No more.
First of all, my name is David Gould. I'm the Chief Diversity and Impact Officer with the Philadelphia 76ers. I just want to address a few things that have been said. You know, Michael, good to see you again. We've spoken a few times. One is that, you know, Michael, I think you made a very good point that, you know, is the arena definite or is it not? One thing I want to make very clear, because I know that, you know, during the presentation it was that, you know, the 76ers announced that there's definitely an arena coming. What we announced in July was a proposal and an idea to put an arena on, you know, between 10th and 11th and Market and Cuthbert. One thing that we're very aware of is the sensitivities and frankly the trauma that this community has experienced from large-scale development in the past. That's not something that we are... That's not something that we are ignoring, and one of the things that we talk about and that we have talked about in all the small meetings that we've had is that we want to make sure that this is not the same as the projects that have threatened this community. That is our goal. That is what we are working to do, and through a lot of the meetings that we have had, we've asked for feedback on what are concerns from the community. The feedback that we've heard is... The feedback that we received so far from people who told us that, hey, they have real concerns about the arena are around traffic and parking, are around safety and security, are around what is going to be the impacts to residents and affordability, what is going to be the impact to businesses, both from an affordability standpoint and in terms of this is going to impact the customer base. The proposal that we put forth in July was not complete. We know that in order to make a project that actually is good for the city as a whole, including this community, requires a lot of conversations and feedback.
All right, we'll go to you as an interpreter to interpreting.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Clayton Prince. You may have noticed I'm not Asian, but my children are. And I believe that we all have to support each other, no matter what our ethnicity is. My question is really simple. Why can't you guys stay where you are? Why? The reason that I heard was that the lease is about to be up and you have to go somewhere. So why can't you build something right next to where you are now? Yeah. It's great to have this one section of the city. Why can't you stay where you are? That's my question.
The question is why can't, you know, the 76ers remain staying at the Wells Fargo Center or in South Philadelphia? Something that is a trend generally is more arenas in downtown areas, which is something Thank you. And we think that, and I know a lot of people in this room do not agree with this, we think that it could be good for the city as a whole, especially when you think about the challenges related to the fashion district and how that has not lived up to its potential, and how there's a lot of and how there is a lot of vacancy on that part of Market Street. The fashion district is really struggling financially, and we think that this could be a good solution there and bring more economic activity to that. We also know that that parcel is zoned for CMX5, which means that if the fashion district goes bankrupt, which is very possible, that any developer could buy it and by right build 3 Liberty Places or Comcast towers on there without any community meetings, without any investment into the community, without any conversations. And part of the reason why we are here and sharing information and listening is because we want to be good corporate citizens. I know a lot of people don't agree with us, but that's something that we are working to do. If somebody else buys that property, they do not have to do any of this. And so there's a lot of different reasons from an organizational standpoint why we.
I'm asking you interpretation.
Not before that, okay?
Interpretation.
We think you agree with that, that's fine.
Alright,
You lie for community, you lie.
Our community is gaslighted.
Hi, my name is Esther Castillo. I have a precise question about the impact study report. So first of all, is it true that you guys are rushing it to get it done by spring, number one? Number two is, if that's so, I would say that that's not enough because we need an impact study report, not just on the economic aspect, but also on, health aspects, environmental aspects, so many aspects. And we have talked to many experts, in universities around the city, that it cannot be done within 6 months. This is just not realistic. So my second question is, if it is your intention to get it done by spring, why the rush? Why you guys are rushing this process? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Esther, and I'm glad you brought up the study because I know in the presentation there was statements about how a study is important to understand the impact on the community. We totally agree. I said earlier that what we came out with in July was an idea and a proposal, and that work needed to be done to really understand what a complete proposal could look like. That can't happen until there's more studies, traffic, economic impact, etc., to make sure that everybody has a uniform understanding of what the impact to the surrounding areas would be. So we definitely want a resource study. The original timeline on the project had it going for zoning in the spring. Frankly, if we reach out to consultants based on, or community stakeholders who lead it, reach out to consultants and, share the scope and they say, this can't be done in 4 months, this has to be done in 8 months or something like that. That's definitely something that we need to take into account. And the most important thing is that everybody has accurate information about what the impact of the project would be. What did I answer? I'm not trying to duck any questions. Oh, no, the only thing I was saying is that the original project timeline that our development team put together had us going for zoning in the spring. So that's what the deadline was. As I said, if we go to consultants and they say it's going to take longer than that, then we need to make sure that we have accurate information before we go forward with that.
No.
This question comes to mind in view of the steering committee's complete absence here and their near silence since their formation and prior to their formation, the organizations and members of that steering committee and businesses were nearly completely silent as well since going all the way back to the summertime. So I'm wondering, have the developers hired any of the organizations or individuals on the steering committee or committed to paying any of them as consultants for public outreach or for generating a community benefits agreement?
Have we committed to paying anybody on the steering committee? And your other question was around the steering committee's absence from this meeting. So one thing I want to make really clear is the steering committee is not the 76ers steering committee. We didn't choose who was on it. We don't have any control over those organizations. They have told us that they are very concerned as their statement. It is not our committee. It is not our committee. I saw the statement they put out today. I'm trying to answer the question. They put out a statement today saying that they have really serious concerns about the project, which we understand and is why we want to go through this process. To your question about whether or not we have paid anybody in the committee or committed to paying anybody on the committee, no. The only thing that could come close to that is when this announcement came out, because we wanted people to know where to go to get information. We have a website that is in English and in Chinese. We put ads in the Metro Chinese Weekly. Dan Tsao was on the steering committee. That is his business. But we haven't paid or are going to be paying anybody on the steering committee. What we have said is that we have budgeted money for a community benefits agreement to help address a lot of the concerns that we're hearing hearing from community members, and that will come after a community benefits agreement was executed and should the project go forward. We've also said that we've heard a lot of issues in Chinatown right now, especially around safety and security. We've heard about efforts to raise money for security cameras. We talked about it in the meeting when I first met Michael, and we said we want to help in the near term too, and so we will invest $100,000 into the community at the direction of a committee that can tell us where we can go to help. But we are not paying anybody. We're not paying anybody on the steering committee. We're not paying anybody on the steering committee.
Our community is there and
It's been reported that you asked PCDC to form a steering committee to work with you on a community benefits agreement that will direct up to $50 million to ease negative impacts of the arena. Do you agree that the individuals and organizations who are negotiating with you on behalf of the community should not be eligible to directly benefit from the agreement? Do you agree that people who are negotiating with you should be barred from receiving payments, promises of business relationships, grants, awards of project management, or other forms of financial compensation in order to avoid giving the impression that their support has been bought, and also to ensure that your community benefits promises address broadly felt community needs and concerns? Do you agree that people negotiating with you on community benefits should be barred from receiving any form of financial compensation?
So the question was whether anybody that's negotiating with us on behalf of the community should be barred from benefiting personally, financially from that. Yeah, I think anybody that is negotiating in good faith on the behalf of a broader community shouldn't be compromised in any way. The credibility of that agreement is going to be super important. So I think our goal is identifying what are the issues that the community needs as a whole, to your point, to ease negative effects and hopefully amplify any potential positive effects. And we're focused on how we invest in the community, not how we invest in individuals or individual organizations.
You lied too much.
Translation.
Hi, my name is Colin Young. I was one of the many who provided testimony last week at a councilman meeting. Councilman Squilla, I'm glad you're here, as well as other representatives. When we found out that there was a piece of legislation that was going to pave or facilitate the groundwork for the arena. Fortunately, that was revised, as was indicated by Councilman Squilla last week. So, I've been a long-time resident. My question here is to the government officials as well as to the 76ers. You've already tried to sneak legislation in to a finance bill to open the possibility of closing off Filbert Street between 10th and 11th Street. Considering this act of bad faith, do you commit to share any and all legislation, permit, or zoning requests in the future in relation to the arena with the whole community in multiple languages?
Thank you. I just want to say I appreciate that question, and I have made a commitment to, in email and in writing and in a statement, that any legislation will not be considered unless shared with the Chinatown community. I make that commitment now, and I make that into the future, where anything is needed in the future, the Chinatown community will be shared that legislation before even being considered for introduction. So the way we would do that, either through a community meeting, the same way we're having today, or through email to any organization that wants to send me. I could make a list of emails. Anybody who wants to know, whether it's an individual or a community group, and they want to know when legislation is possibly being introduced, I will also email you any possible or proposed legislation before it would be considered for introduction. Thank you. I would look for at least a minimum of a 30-day window for review and comment. And if more time is needed, I'm happy to do that.
All right, good evening, everyone. My question is going to be to the brother there. Can you stand back up, sir? Thank you. My name is Asantwari Nkrumah Toure. My pronouns are she, her, and co-conspirator with the Chinese community. First of all, what's your title with this thing? What's your title?
Chief Diversity and Impact Officer with the 76ers. Chief Diversity and Impact Officer with the 76ers.
All right, given your title, let's be very clear. The 76ers, the developers, or anybody else has no right, legal and certainly not moral, to destroy Chinatown. And the joke in DC is there's a Chinatown with no Chinese. And lastly, let me say to you, as diversity, whatever, a young black person, and I'm a black person, old enough to be your mom. I'm embarrassed to be here to see a young black man being the front man with the rich white folks to tear down the community.
Good evening, and I really do appreciate your concern and your comments. And I will say that our company, Mosaic Development Partners, share your concern. And we have worked in all kinds of neighborhoods in this city to try to avoid exactly your concern. One of the examples, I just want to give you an example. We have spent a lot of time in North Philadelphia. For example, there's a project that we are completing at 20th and Ridge, where there is affordability as a part of this project. There is community investment in that project. We opened up a grocery store with a black owner-operator in a community that is primarily African American. We understand that we need to respect and celebrate culture. That is very important to us as a company, and it's very important to the 76ers.
As cited by a national news source, shows that teams have increased ticket prices, and this inflation in ticket prices has caused attendance to drop, indicating that there is a lack of ticket sales and disengagement from the 76ers fans. Sixers are already having trouble filling the stadium seats that they have right now. DC also built a stadium in their Chinatown, and barely any of the pre-stadium organizations and businesses survived. The entire Chinese population in DC Chinatown dwindled significantly. So you already have trouble filling the existing arena. How do you plan on fulfilling the promises of creating more jobs when there is existing data that shows the opposite?
On DC, which I'm glad you brought up. I know it's been brought up by others. I know that's a great source of concern and frustration from folks. We know that what happened in DC is the opposite of what should happen with downtown development. Eminent domain was used to actively displace families and businesses. Properties were bought and people were evicted. And the arena was built without any, contemplation of how to preserve a community. I heard a radio interview of the developer and the owner of the time, and the question that the host asked was, well, what did you do? Like, do you have any thoughts about what was there before? And the person said, and shocked me, he said, well, there was nothing there before. Well, there was Chinatown, but there was nothing there before. That is a horrible response for any developer. That's a horrible response for any developer. And I know I agree, that is not true. That is not true, I totally agree. That is what this person said. That's what the person who developed that property said. I totally disagree with
Mr. Gould, Councilman Squilla made a commitment to share all legislation. It was the Sixers attorneys that wrote that clause into the bill that we had to stop. Do you make the same commitment that you won't try anything shady again?
I'm not allowed to answer the question? Yes, no, the answer is yes. I wanted to provide additional context.
So let her.
My next set of questions are for Councilman Squilla. The developers are rushing to get zoning approval in June. Yes or no, will you commit to requiring the developers to conduct a full set of independent environmental impact studies through an open, transparent request for proposals created by academics and planners with experience in environmental impact studies? To not introduce zoning or take any further action until these studies are performed and considered and discussed by all parties, and viable mitigation plans are placed for any harm identified to the Chinatown community.
My question is very simple. How much do you know about Chinatown? Yeah, how much you know about Chinatown?
So the question is, how much do I know about Chinatown? I did not grow up in Chinatown. I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up in Germantown. I've spent a lot of time in this community speaking with people like the meeting we had and a lot of other people, learning about the community and learning about the culture. And I'm happy to share what I learned, and I appreciate your question.
That's about meetings. That's the meeting here.
No presentation. You gotta answer the question.
I'm trying to answer the question right now.
What do you know about that?
I'm answering the question right now. So what I've learned is how important this community is to the people who live here, who work here, and I don't know where the feedback's coming from. And people who come here to experience their culture, whether it's because they need a accountant or a lawyer who speaks their language, or they want to go and get groceries so that they can cook their culture and their food at home, or whether they want to go to a restaurant that feels like home. Those are all things that I know are very important, and the economic vitality of this community is very important to that. The affordability of this community is important to sustaining that. Those are all things that have been told to me over the course of the past few months. I'm not from this community. I will never appreciate it in the same way that anybody who grew up here does, but those are some of the things that have been impressed on me based on the past few months that I've been having these conversations. And something that has been instilled in me even more is the importance to do everything possible to try to sustain this community and preserve it. And that is something that I am working to do as part of this project. I know people in this room, a lot of people in this room do not agree with that, but it's something that we're going to continue to do and study what is the best way to try to sustain the community if this project does move forward.
You can't sustain the community with an arena.
All right. So 7613 just told me they have to leave very soon. And then, so they only allow us as two more portion.
Say you guys have answered the questions beautifully, well answered, good job. But it's also very empty. They're the template answers that we have heard over and over again. So my question is, if this community is really majority against this arena, are you still going to build it?
Thank you for the question. As I mentioned, our goal is to make sure that this is a positive project for everyone. We will put forth a proposal once we finalize the proposal and get all the feedback. We will put together a final proposal that we think will help everybody. Once we do that, we'll submit it for consideration.
So in other words, you're saying it doesn't matter.
What I'm saying
it doesn't matter. You are going to go forward no matter what. 所以你的意思就是说，不管我们的答案是什么，我们的想法是什么，你还是会仍然继续要盖这个球场。
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we we are listening to the feedback from everybody. That includes Chinatown, that includes Wash West, that includes Vine Expressway, that includes the city as a whole. We will submit it to the city for the city's consideration. If they say that this is not good enough, then we will.
So in other words, we're just small parts. 我们是小部分。
Chinatown is a huge part. I would love to clarify my answer, but I wanted to make sure people have the answer. What I wanted to clarify about my last response is that we know that there are people right now who oppose the project. We also know that there are people who are open to the project, and we want to listen to everybody in the community. We know that communities are not monoliths and that there is never going to be unanimity, so we're going to put forward proposals for everybody to consider.
So my question is, why do the Sixers deserve a new arena for a team that hasn't won a national championship since 1993? Don't you think that those dollars could be better spent investing in another winning team? A new arena will not enhance the performance of a losing team. So why would a losing team need a better arena? My second part of this is also, you mentioned that the fashion district did not live up to the expectations of new retail. Another area that is failing with many vacancies is Rent House. Why is that neighborhood not under consideration, or was it just not posed? Is it because it's a notoriously affluent white neighborhood? Lastly, David, you are obviously a person of color, and so am I, and many of the people in this room. The API community is a marginalized group. We have been under attack. With 2020, we have seen the attack from the Asian community. Don't you think, as a person of color, that we should protect each other in our communities?
Okay, so really looking for the three questions. One about the performance of the team. Actually, a new arena will help the performance of the team. One of the things that The 76ers have one of the hardest schedules in the NBA. Part of the reason for that is because they are tenants in their building and do not have sort of first pickup dates, which is why there's a lot of back-to-backs. There's also, when free agents figure out where they want to play, the facility is a big piece of that. To your second question about Rittenhouse, the arena is being built, replacing one big box with another. The fashion district's there right now. There is not a lot of place in the city where there's that amount of real estate to be able to build an arena. It just doesn't exist. We actually like the site because there aren't small businesses and residents and stuff for a parcel. It's one big box and replacing it with another. And to your third question, I'm very aware of the challenges that the API community has gone through. As a black man, I've also experienced a lot of challenges. And my job within the company is to help us put forth a proposal that is equitable as possible. The one thing I just wanted to add is we usually start off these meetings that we go with a presentation to provide information about the project. We would love to answer additional questions. I'm happy to work today on answering additional questions over email or whatever it may be. We don't want to hoard information. We want to make sure people have the information that they would like.
I want to thank everybody who's coming out tonight and expressing their concerns, their voice, and their input. I also want to thank the interpreter because I've been to a lot of these meetings, and I want to say that she did a wonderful job. And I think please give her a round of applause. Thank you. And also understand, this is not the end of questioning. There'll be plenty more meetings, there'll be a lot more input, and like I reiterate, I'm going to reiterate again, any legislation that is being offered will be shared with the community, whether indirectly or directly associated with the 76ers or the arena, and I am committed to that. So thank you all for being here, thank you for inviting me, I appreciate it.
我们印度华人侨团联盟现在有33个团体会员。
Hello everyone, since there is an interpreter who is said to be very good, I will speak in Chinese. My name is Wang Yumi and I am part of the Pennsylvania Chinese Association. So, regarding the 76ers proposal, after recent studies that we have conducted on our own, we have realized that in taking into consideration the past experiences with other big development projects to Chinatown communities, I would like to present a couple of the findings that we have found. And also considering the present situation in Philadelphia. First, with the marina being built in Chinatown, it's going to cause major issues with traffic and congestion that is already a huge problem and increase the problem extremely more. Second, with the marina in Chinatown, it's going to cause living expenses to go up immensely, forcing people to move out. Third, for the current businesses that are currently in Chinatown, their businesses are going to be impacted immensely and they're going to be losing lots of business. Fourth, the arena is going to destroy the Chinese culture and the diversity, what makes Chinatown special to us all. Fifth, the arena is going to cause the population in Chinatown to go down until there is nobody left. Philadelphia Chinatown has a 170-year history here. It was built on the hardship and all of the difficulties that people before us have worked hard and worked through to preserve what we have today, and we should respect that. So we should not allow it to be destroyed. Otherwise, how will we be able to face our ancestors and how will we be able to face our future generations? This is a place where we come to live, to work, even our recreational activities, this is where we carry it out. So we have a right to fight against building an arena here. This project is proposed by business entrepreneurs who want to invest and make money out of the community groups. So we should work with other community groups. We should work together with them to protect the Chinese community, to preserve what is already here. We do not need an arena here.
Thank you.
My question would have been better to ask the rep from the 76ers, but I wonder if the councilman can help shed a little light on it. They seem to have this, to me, extremely flimsy excuse for their location because the gallery, I'm sorry, it will always be the gallery, guys. The fashion district is failing. So is that true? And also, why do they care? Do they have a stake in that? Or they will lose money if the fashion district loses money? What happens to the tenants of the fashion district? Like, are they in agreement with this? Are they ready to vacate and give up their space?
Get a response. The gallery is, the fashion district, I'm sorry. Yes, it's struggling. It's been struggling since they opened, but there is still opportunity to bring it back to life. And so I do see that, Center City District just did a report, and that we had, pre-pandemic, it was 87% occupancy within our Center City area. As far as businesses are concerned, we went down to 51%, 52% during the pandemic, but now we're back up to 80%, so I think business is coming back. So I do believe that we have an opportunity to grow that.
Hi, my name is Debbie, and I'm a community member here, and I've lived here all my life. I want to thank you for staying and taking your time out here. That shows that you do respect us and you do want to hear our voice. So thank you, Councilman. Okay, it's not that those who left. So they want to build here. We don't want it. Who has the ultimate say of what goes there, or are they allowed? Like, is it the government? How do they protect us? And if so, where do we go? For our community voice to be heard and for them to say this plan is Okay.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for that question. As you heard earlier, there will have to be some type of legislation introduced in order for the proposal to move forward. So that legislation had to be introduced by me. So I would have to introduce that legislation. So the only way I made a commitment that we would share that legislation with the community ahead of time, get feedback, and only if supported by the community would it be able to move forward. My position, and I told this when I met with the 76ers development group, that their goal and what they need to do in order to get legislation for this was to meet with the community, get outreach to the community, find out what their concerns were, see if those concerns can be mediated, and if they can, then a process will be in place to move forward. If they can't, then the process would not move forward.
If the gallery and if the Fashion District were not doing well and this community is vehemently opposed to the stadium, why not work with the community to build mixed-use housing and commercial and a small park for people to gather and connect the rest of the community by public transportation?
Money.
Thank you for that question. We are currently working with the Chinatown community on several proposals within the area. One is going to be an RFP for the Roundhouse, if you're familiar with that site. The other was a Ninth Vine proposal on that site that would include, hopefully, affordability. And then the third site is the old police station. Also working with the Chinatown community on that for possible affordable development. At the gallery site, it's a little harder because it's privately owned. These other sites are city-owned, so we have a little more control over them. But if the gallery, the Fashion District decides that they no longer are going to be in existence, we would then want to work within the Chinatown community to see what the possibilities are on that site. Now, if they decided to do something on their own, that wouldn't need any council or community input, then because they own that site and it's privately owned, they would have the ability to do that.
So I just want to start by clarifying, there was a related question earlier asked about why the 76ers deserve a state or an arena even if they haven't won. And I just want to clarify to everyone in this room and everyone who's watching the live stream that even if they won a game, they do not deserve an arena in this area. I also want to say that a lot of us know that what the 76ers representatives are saying make absolutely no sense. And I agree that everything that they said was bullshit. What can we do to help stop this from happening?
First of all, thank you all so much for coming tonight. It is very emotional for us to see our community stand up. This is not the first fight that we've had to fight to protect our community, to protect our elders, to protect our children. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be the last fight either, but we will continue to fight. If those of you that signed up, look for news and opportunity, get the word out, talk to your friends, write letters to newspapers. They're billionaires. They have more money than God to throw at this and to try to convince the city that Chinatown doesn't matter or is in favor of this. We have our elders, our children, our youth, our heart, and our love for each other in this community. And you know what? Our love for this community has always won, and it will win again.
We promise going forward that in all meetings revolving Chinatown, that you will be transparent, that city government will be transparent, because we elected you, and we supported you for many, many years, and at that meeting, I really appreciate that you took that that clause out of that bill and really appreciate it. But in going forward, I want to make sure that there's no more of that kind of stuff going on.
About transparency, making sure nothing like this ever happens again, and I said I made my commitment to you to do that any legislation, whether indirectly or directly associated with the arena, well, and I actually gave a timeline today, somebody asked, so at least 30 days in advance will be shared with the community before being considered for introduction. The other thing about the mini station, and I'm a big supporter of that, and thank you and everybody else for helping the fundraise to do a mini station to keep police close by. And I want to thank the Chinatown community for always being there to have the backs of our first responders. No matter when there's an event, there's always an event for our first responders. The first responders love being in Chinatown because the people in Chinatown do support them. So I am here, and also one last thing is a process that's going to be going on about the cap of the Vine Expressway. They started, hopefully public meetings will be starting, outreach will be starting in February, and public meetings about the cap. This is not associated with the arena. This is just about the proposed cap for Vine Street Expressway. We'll start in February, and then in May, probably start having some public meetings.
So what I want to ask is, thank goodness the legislation previously was not passed, but if it was by any chance passed, is there any way for it to be reverted back? Are there any examples of such cases happening?
No, there's no way that legislation could be passed with that language that was in there. That language was mended out, so there is no way that any language associated with Filbert Street or the arena will be part of that legislation.
If the bill did get passed, could it be reverted after it got passed?
Yes, any bill introduced or legislation that is passed can always be amended later on, could be changed, could be, anybody can introduce legislation, but it has to go through a public process. So it has to have a public hearing like was there. So anytime legislation is introduced, it could be passed.
And then vetoed if it was, let's just say, not transparent, and then groups or organizations.
It would have to be passed by 9 members of council, so if it got to that level, then it would need at least 9 votes from council to pass out of council. Then it would have to be signed by the mayor.
Okay.
All right, and then he could either sign it or veto it. At that point.
Serena earlier asked a question as to what can be done specifically by people to try to reach out to city council, to reach out to powers that be, to please stop this. And while I really appreciate the broad answer given by our community leader, but specific things. Who can we reach out to? Who is a name, a person, a phone number, or email that we can contact to vocalize this? Because if it doesn't fall on the right ear, we can scream and cloud as we want, but no one will actually hear us. And then second, I work here in Chinatown. Everybody that I work with, I work for a government agency for the federal government. Everybody in the office scoffed at the idea of this. I'm not going to tell you what organization I work for, but everybody in the office who commutes here out of town just laugh at the idea. And it seems that the community unanimously does not want this. And finally, if we're interested about keeping our community safe, and great, police, we could have police, but why is there not investment in actual community? We're talking about big box stores, and we're talking about giving money to more people that have more. Why are we not talking about helping invest in actual community members that would actually bring people in here? Studies have repeatedly shown that arenas do not bring money back to the city. Arenas do not bring money to cities. Communities being built up brings money to cities. Communities making themselves safe for themselves help bring communities up. But arenas and big box stores absolutely do not ever return on their investment. And we've seen this over and over and over again across decades and across cities. That's it.
Thank you so much for that question. My name is Mohan Seshadri. I'm the Executive Director of APIPA. We're Pennsylvania's statewide Asian American civil rights advocacy organization. So there are 2 things right now that you can do to help. The first thing is you can sign our petition. both to make sure that your voice is heard that way and to get other updates that will be launching starting in January about this ongoing fight. You can go to apipa.vote/Chinatown. Again, that's apipa.vote/Chinatown to sign that petition and send it to your friends and family members across the state and across the country. The second thing you can do is call and email your city council member. You heard Councilmember Squilla here tonight making a commitment to oppose any arena that is against our interests and before any impact studies. You heard him commit tonight to send our community any legislation 30 days before it gets introduced so that we have a chance to read it and make our voice heard on it. He is the only city council member who has so far made that commitment. So you have district city council members in your area, and you have council members at large, and next year is an election year here in Philly, so they need to feel the heat, and they need to save Chinatown. Thank you so much.